You already know coffee. You've probably tried matcha. But there's a third option that's been fueling entire cultures for centuries, and the emerging research behind it is turning heads in metabolic science. Today we put all three head to head and look at what the evidence actually says about how they affect your brain, your energy and your metabolism. Quick note before we start, this video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you have a medical condition or take medication. Welcome to Ingredient Verdict, where we examine one ingredient at a time, no hype, just the evidence. Coffee, matcha and yerba mate are three of the most consumed caffeinated beverages on the planet. They're often compared on caffeine content alone, but that's only a small part of what makes each of them interesting. Let's start with what they actually are. Coffee is made from roasted coffee beans, seeds of the coffea plant. It's the most widely consumed psychoactive substance in the world, and it has one of the most extensive research bases of any dietary compound. Matcha is a powdered green tea made from shade-grown Camellia sinensis leaves. Unlike regular green tea where you steep and discard the leaves, with matcha you consume the entire leaf, meaning you get a much higher concentration of its active compounds. Yerba mate is an infusion made from the dried leaves of Ilex paraguayensis, a plant native to South America. It's been consumed for centuries in Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay and Paraguay, often shared communally from a gourd through a metal straw called a bombilla. Outside South America it's relatively unknown, but that may be about to change. All three contain caffeine, but in meaningfully different amounts and with very different accompanying compounds. A standard cup of coffee contains roughly 80 to 100 milligrams of caffeine. It's fast-acting and reaches peak plasma levels within 30 to 60 minutes. Matcha contains around 30 to 70 milligrams of caffeine per serving depending on preparation. But matcha also contains L-theanine, an amino acid that modifies how caffeine is experienced in the body. Yerba mate contains roughly 65 to 130 milligrams of caffeine per serving, comparable to coffee. But like matcha, it contains other compounds that interact with caffeine in ways that appear to modify its effects. L-theanine deserves its own section because it's one of the most interesting compounds in the caffeine world. L-theanine is an amino acid found almost exclusively in tea plants. Research suggests it promotes relaxation without sedation. It increases alpha brainwave activity, which is associated with a calm but alert mental state. When combined with caffeine, as it naturally is in matcha, research suggests L-theanine smooths out the stimulant effect. The energy feels cleaner, the focus more sustained, and the crash less pronounced compared to coffee alone. This combination has been studied in multiple controlled trials and the effects appear genuine rather than placebo. Think of L-theanine as a volume knob on caffeine. It doesn't turn it down, it makes the signal cleaner. Matcha also contains significantly higher levels of a specific class of antioxidants called catechins, particularly EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, compared to regular green tea. EGCG has been studied extensively for its anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective properties, and research links it to improved cognitive function, reduced oxidative stress and potential cardiovascular benefits. Coffee has its own impressive research profile. It's one of the most studied dietary compounds in existence, and the overall picture is genuinely positive. Regular coffee consumption has been associated in large epidemiological studies with reduced risk of type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, certain liver conditions and cognitive decline. It's a meaningful source of antioxidants for most people in Western diets, not because coffee is uniquely antioxidant rich, but because people drink so much of it. Coffee also stimulates dopamine release more directly than matcha or yerba mate, which partly explains why it feels more immediately rewarding and why dependence develops more readily. The downsides are well known: anxiety, disrupted sleep, increased cortisol response, digestive issues and tolerance development are all documented. How much these matter depends heavily on the individual and timing of consumption. Now for the one most people haven't heard of, and where the research is getting genuinely interesting. Yerba mate contains a unique combination of bioactive compounds, xanthines including caffeine and theobromine, chlorogenic acids, saponins and polyphenols including ferulic acid. These compounds appear to work synergistically in ways that set yerba mate apart from both coffee and matcha. Animal research from Brigham Young University published in Nutrients in 2025 found that yerba mate significantly increased GLP-1 gene expression and plasma GLP-1 levels in mice. GLP-1 is a hormone central to satiety and blood sugar regulation. It's the same pathway targeted by pharmaceutical drugs like semaglutide. The research suggests the effect works partially through the gut-mediated metabolism of ferulic acid and partially through bitter taste receptors that also appear to reduce sweet cravings. Human trials are needed to confirm whether these effects translate. This is worth pausing on. A traditional beverage consumed for centuries is demonstrating effects on one of the most important metabolic pathways in human physiology, through mechanisms that are only now being understood. Animal studies from researchers at Brigham Young University found tissue-specific improvements in mitochondrial efficiency and fat oxidation, findings that are promising but await confirmation in human trials. A systematic review and meta-analysis published in 2025 found that yerba mate consumption may improve glycemic outcomes including reduced postprandial glucose and HbA1c levels, though the authors noted that further research is needed to confirm these findings. We'd call the metabolic research on yerba mate promising and accelerating, not yet conclusive, but significantly more substantial than most people realize. One legitimate concern with yerba mate is worth addressing honestly. Some epidemiological studies, primarily from South American populations who consume very large quantities, often very hot, have associated high yerba mate consumption with increased risk of certain cancers, particularly esophageal cancer. The current evidence suggests this risk is primarily associated with drinking it at very high temperatures rather than the mate itself. Drinking it at moderate temperatures appears to carry a different risk profile. We'd call this worth knowing rather than a reason to avoid it entirely. So how do they compare for brain health specifically? For sustained focus and cognitive performance, the evidence favors matcha. The L-theanine and caffeine combination produces a more stable, less jittery cognitive state than coffee alone, and the EGCG content adds neuroprotective properties. For immediate alertness and dopaminergic stimulation, coffee remains the most potent and best-studied option. For metabolic benefits beyond caffeine, fat oxidation, insulin sensitivity, GLP-1 stimulation, yerba mate has the most interesting emerging research profile. So here's our verdict. For brain focus and clean energy, matcha is the most evidence-backed choice. The L-theanine and caffeine combination is genuinely well studied and the effects are real. For overall health and the most extensive long-term research base, coffee in moderate amounts has a strong case. The research on cognitive protection and metabolic health is hard to argue with. For metabolic health, appetite regulation and fat oxidation, yerba mate is the most intriguing option, particularly given the GLP-1 research. It's the one we'd watch most closely as research continues. For most people, the honest answer is that all three have genuine benefits and none needs to be avoided. The differences come down to what you're optimizing for, how you respond to caffeine individually, and, frankly, what you enjoy drinking. One practical note: All three contain caffeine, and caffeine consumed too late in the day disrupts sleep quality even when you feel like it doesn't. Cutting off all three by early afternoon is one of the most evidence-backed sleep hygiene habits available. That's our verdict on coffee, matcha and yerba mate. Bottom line, caffeine is just the beginning. What comes with it matters as much as the stimulant itself. Read the label, not the marketing. If this was useful, subscribe. In every video we examine one ingredient, no hype, just the evidence. What ingredient would you like us to examine next? Drop it in the comments below. Next up, we look at one of the most misunderstood vitamins, and the mistake almost everyone makes with it. See you then.